maybe not. Maybe didn't hit the mark with the name as much as we could have, but but I love the emphasis that you put on last chance regardless, and there's a lot on the line. Certainly seeding is very important, as is the big monies. So this man familiar with big money, over 800,000 won in his career. It is TY.
And his opponent in the bottom right, the Red Terran player, he is Clem. Cats, how much did you say? What did you just say about TY in his earnings?
I thought it was 800,000. Maybe not. Is that wrong? I thought. Oh, was it 83? I don't know. I thought I saw an 8. Nate,
okay.
you're killing me.
I was trying to set you up. I was trying to set you up.
What was it? What was it?
You said you said he's amassed so much money. You said 800,000 won, and I was gonna say, well, Cats, 800,000 Korean won is only $700.
Nice.
There you go. Yeah, I went through the full explanation, so it's completely worthless now. But I just, sometimes I'm like, I just gotta crack open the window on the side and let someone else see what's going on in here, because
I love it. I love any windows into your brain, Nate. I love your brain ever since I used to burp you as a baby.
Good times. Good times. Good times going down the water slide, right? They were the best of times. They were also the worst of times, for sure.
Yeah, that water slide hurt, didn't it? It was like
yes.
Yeah, I only
was
went
not
down
safe.
it once. Yeah, it was not safe. Yeah.
I don't know why that pool wasn't even like more than 4 feet deep. Seriously,
yeah, dangerous water slide. It was we're talking about a water slide in the root house that was like basically the owner built it, and it was just not. Yeah, it did not have any safety regulations.
Just imagine like the ultimate like wading pool. Like for like if you wanted to go up to like maybe like your midsection ish, and they're like, the guy's like, no, we have to be able to go 70 miles an hour into this water if we get into the whatever state of mind you need to be in to want to do something like that, do a shallow pool. But yeah, it's good times regardless. Kind of reminds me of TVT, honestly, because this matchup gets going super fast, and then the next thing you know, it's just splat, right? You run into the other guy's wall of tanks.
Yeah, I mean, TVT can be a little bit staley, but on this particular map, I find that you can definitely push the envelope on the faster timings. I personally like one tank pushes with a few units and just trying to siege that low ground expansion of 2 gases. I'm surprised that both players are actually going for the low ground expansion, but both players are making a lot of units, right? So we're gonna see a little bit of a clash, the same number and types, and exact same mirror units here. So we'll see who gets the better of the micro. It seems like TY is already a little bit better pre-positioned, but the concave favors Clem to start.
Yeah, and TVT can be, and I guess that is a little bit more what I was trying to say, is that the early game aggression can be absolutely devastating, right? Yeah. Which whoever's on the receiving end, and sometimes being on the giving side is actually worse, because if you throw away enough, if you build enough units to try and make a push, and your opponent has one tank properly placed in a weird spot, and you're like, oh my god, my whole entire attack is put down. Then you find yourself asking, like, why did I do this? Why didn't I just try to macro up a little bit harder? And the other thing to keep in mind is
you open Raven the next game, right?
Yes, exactly. A submarine is a really small map too, though. It's a very direct path to get to your opponent's base. But particularly in TVT, perhaps one of the most common things you'll see is that quick rush with a siege tank to either the underside of the natural or underside of the main base, because you can cut off where those add-ons are. You can get the production threatened a little bit. And with early siege tanks like this, it's the Hellions and Reapers are not the best at dislodging them. So nothing is really here to stop this. And this is why going across the map slowly for TY might end up hurting him, because Clem gets to be the first person to attack, and now TY has to micro in 2 places at once a little bit sooner than his opponent.
Yeah, and TY is gonna go for the counter offense, because like you said, this position is not gonna be dislodgeable once the siege tank sieges. However, this mine actually connects beautifully onto all of the units of Clem. It even repositions forward a little bit daring there. Back at home, TY already has a tank in position, so whatever losses he took at the natural is all he's gonna take for the time being, and he's still doing damage on Clem's side of things.
Oh my god.
These units can be microed as well against the Cyclone, and the Raven pops up, but it's forced to use its energy right away. Nate, TY, how did he do it?
Oh, this game has just gotten so chaotic, right? He managed to get all those Reapers and Hellions, that Widow Mine too, just devastating amounts of damage inside of that main base. But the Cyclones are still alive at home defensively. He's got, I think, at least a Viking over there. He's got the Raven with them. But he lost all those workers. Clem still needs to be removed though. Like TY still has to get rid of this tank. I think he's barely outside of range of it. Yeah, he was only able to hit it there because of the splash from the other unit. So everything has to come down to deal with this. The both Vikings will land. They do tons of damage to siege tanks. Any mechanical unit, Vikings wreck on the ground.
The way of the CC. Yes, indeed. So the CC will land. All in all, though, it was looking like such a great position to start off for Clem, just attacking first and getting that siege tank sieged. So I think that if TY found him in the middle of the map, that things would have favored him greatly, right? Like with some of those units being loaded into the medevac, TY would have had free reign on the Hellions and the Reapers. But instead he didn't, so he didn't see it coming, and that's what's so impressive to me, is that he's stabilizing off of such a difficult position, right, where he has to decide to go on the counter offense and actually finds equalizing damage.
Yeah, and this is where TVT gets weird, because it's like which little things can you try to cut out or move or do to try and get the advantage over your opponent who has a similar army setup. And in TVT, it's always been volatile, because Terran in general is a race that revolves around its power units, right? Mm-hmm. But in other matchups, you can kind of deal with, you could deal with pretty much anything that a Protoss or Zerg will throw at you with a bunch of Marines at the start of a game. You can make a lot of miracles happen like that. But in TVT, not so much, right? 1 or 2 siege tanks is going to invalidate quite a few supply extra, right? In terms of just Marines. So you need to have neutralizing units like Liberators or your Ravens with your interference matrix and whatnot. You can't really brute force this matchup in that way without being crazy aggressive with like drops, pretty much.
Yeah, it is a very technical matchup indeed. I mean, there are very many different little advantages that you can take. One of those will be air superiority as we move further into the game. Both players already starting the Viking production. Both players already have the Ravens, and you might wonder why not go for the Vikings before even the Ravens, but the Ravens play a crucial role in killing those tanks, disabling those tanks, more than anything else. But the auto turret is also so very strong in the early game, so getting those early to gain energy is crucial. Both players actually choosing to meet in the middle of the map, and it's actually TY that wants to push more than Clem, as Clem situated or started his turret a little bit sooner, I think.
Yeah, this is a big move out though, coming over to where this natural is, because if he sieges up, he cuts off the third base too, right, from reinforcements. But thankfully for Clem, he's on top of it. Good scan. And I like the 3 Ravens here, just because those auto turrets, when the tanks aren't sieged and there's not stim, auto turrets absolutely rip everything to shreds. And as I say that, the Ravens for TY actually dropped some turrets in the middle line of Clem, and he's going to pick himself up a pretty healthy amount of SCVs here. 8 killed, 9+, and he's got the drop going back inside of TY's base. Oh man, that's going to kill a couple. Actually, no, Vikings didn't land. So yeah, Clem's actually going to get a lot of damage done here.
Yeah, he's gonna corner and kill the army of TY. So while TY does get some SCVs, I suppose, for the Raven energy, he's gonna end up losing his entire army in the process. So his tank count is now reset. This Ravens really can't aid in any sort of defense, and Clem already has a third situated. This is a beautiful spot for the Frenchman.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You said it best. He caught the army. He had the better harass there too, and he's gotten a tremendous amount of work done. That's one of those things that when I talk about TVT being volatile as well, when you use your Raven energy to harass your opponent, it is. Yeah. I actually think that is one of the riskiest things you can do in StarCraft in general, is to play a TVT and use your Raven energy to harass, because it is that important of a unit for making a defense, for creating space, buying time, and neutralizing expensive high-tier units of your opponent. But not having that makes things a little bit harder, and now he's wedged himself onto this third just well enough that TY is going to have to float to the other base or lose a lot trying to break a Clem siege. But Clem's already repositioning, because he's thinking to himself, okay, you're probably going to try to go to the other base. potentially, or you're going to commit everything to the third itself, and that opens up the natural for harass.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it. Without even air superiority, Clem is out here on the map. He recognizes that he has an advantage. He doesn't need to be out here in the sense that if he just sits back, he is ahead regardless. He did establish that earlier, but he also knows that he has the army advantage. And so he's, you know, moving around like he owns the place because he kind of does. And to be honest, with this scan, he's gonna get situated to siege this base once again. This time there will be some SCV losses as he tries to retreat. TY, that is. The tanks are gonna be disabled actually, and Clem continues to push on forward in spite of having the economic lead. He just wants more right now, Nate.
He's getting into a pretty good position too, because if he's able to siege up on that low ground and can use the scans to not only pick off a potential high ground tank, but the starport, that's such an important source of the tech infrastructure here for TY. That's one of those structures that you really cannot afford to just lose. But now it's not even about that anymore. He's just containing him. He's got his own third base that's up and running. That little bit of harass doing what it can, and he's dropping some interference matrix to continue to push forward with these spread out Marines. Not able to quite finish him just yet, but this is a nice spot to be in as any. The counterattack from TY, though, double medevac drop, hits that third, and killing this command center would be absolutely huge. I do think he's going to be able to get it, Cats. Nice grab. And that is going to give him so much breathing room. He does have a third command center. Yes, it's in his base, but it's not as bad as it was just a minute or two ago.
Oh my God, I thought it was just about over, Nate. I mean, Clem with every advantage just about, but TY with a beautiful maneuver there. The Raven was spotting for him all throughout this time, and it had 9 kills on it. So, you know, on the offense, the Raven of TY did find a little bit of damage, but more importantly, identifying that naked third, sends out most of his army, leaves a few tanks to anchor, and now, you know, it's TY kind of coming back into a game that seemed impossible to me.
Yeah, and here's the most important thing I think that's happening right now. The starport got moved, right? It was building medevacs. It had to float over and start to build a reactor again. So he has to bring everything down. I was going to say, he has to completely bring all of his ground units at once, gets a great sandwich to clean up the army, because all I was trying to say there was he didn't really have any way to deal with the fact that he couldn't get over the Viking count. And
they were still even on supply, more or less. I mean, he was barely down on supply at that point, but I really didn't get to look at his army. I'm not sure if he just felt like that was too much damage sustained, but I think it might have still been a playable game from Clem. I mean, TY was much further behind than he was at that point, I think.
There was a lot
when he brought it
there was a lot going on in that game, honestly. I was looking at this, I'm like, the siege position is great, the counterattacks are good too, but in my mind, I'm like, there's no way he can get air control. Like, if he's able to solidify this with those tanks, he should be able to do it. But being able to get those 2 medevacs of Marines outside just to get the sandwich was fantastic, because he didn't have the Marines actually with those tanks to deal with the SCV pull, or, you know, the other Marines that got pulled back from the drop harass.
Yeah, is the graph lying to me? The graph says that Clem still had a larger army when that game ended.
You know, I
didn't get to see his army at home, but I saw the supply was even.
This this game to me is one of those ones where I'm gonna need to look at the replay again later, because I agree with you. I didn't think that the game was over, but perhaps with no third command center and knowing that TY would just retake his third and then he could never build his own third, like he just thought that it was impossible. I don't know. I think losing the third CC might have been what broke him, but.
He definitely lost a lot of economy there, but I think he was in such a dominant position. Maybe even just judging from his positioning, he thought he wasn't in as dominant as a position as we did, or as I did at least, because he was continuing to push on forward, right? And that was a beautiful cleanup by TY. You can't take away anything from the guy. I mean, drops coming in lined up, like dropping, you know, 1 unit at a time as they move from one side, then the SCVs and the army from the other, and a 360 MLG. Surround onto Clem's army to clean it up. I mean, just with minimal losses, but still, I think Clem maybe had enough. We'll have to check that replay, maybe if there is a break. Hope to know what happened. But we are loaded into the second game. What a comeback by the man that you're gonna introduce. I'm gonna introduce the other guy, the guy that is trailing. Nani, it is Liquid Clem.
Pull the fast one on there.
Nani.
And his opponent in the bottom right, in blue, leading 1-0. He is TY.
It was all that double drop, Nate. That was wow.
Sometimes you got to double up, cats. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes,
Hells yeah.
Sometimes you got stuff, and that's okay. Live your life. Live your best life.
Yeah. What's up with his barracks? What is the barracks for? Is he looking
He wants
to
him
block?
to think he's proxying. He wants him to think he's proxying.
Surely,
if there's an SCV scout,
no?
I would assume so, but
Actually, maybe not. Look at the fog on the other side. That's where the barracks is. Maybe it wouldn't be scouted. Actually, that is so cool.
Yeah. I can't think of any other reason why you would put it here, unless you were worried about like early tanks. But then you would probably build it by the command center, right? Like further down rather than to the side, because you can't build an add-on there. Like this barracks has to be lifted to serve its purpose.
Yeah, you're completely right about that. So it's gotta be for that reason. Very interesting placement indeed. I mean, TY probably looking at that little patch of fog and wondering if a barracks would fit, and you know, he must have tested it and seen that it has, because that's what he's chosen to do. And on the other side we have Clem. Both players this time around opening with the double gas. Can you put an add-on there?
You know, maybe. So here's I've reevaluated the situation because he's actually scouted. Okay. He's been scouting with an SCV for proxy buildings. So the other thing that can happen if he doesn't actually get to scout is he goes to the wall and just sees 3 supply depots, right? And that early on would also tell you, hey, I'm proxying you. But he's not, because he's not actually proxying him, there has to be a reason why he would want him to think he was, right? At least in my head. Now he started the command center, so it doesn't. I don't know. I'm just gonna shut up.
It's Clem that's proxying, and I mean, concealing information is always good, right? If you think your opponent's proxying you, you might, go as far as to make a bunker or take whatever measures you think are in place. This is also a nice setup in case there was a scan. It is the most unusual positioning that I have seen, so likely to miss maybe 1 or 2 of those buildings potentially even. Maybe he has even looked at Clem's patterns and know where he scans to get the full picture of his opponent's base. Who knows? But it is Clem with this proxy starport. Do you anticipate? Oh, it's going to be a Liberator. I was going to ask if a Tech Lab was going to go up.
No, I really like Liberators in this situation. Like this is something that you'll see on ladder a lot. Would be the opponent is going to, usually around the time that this Liberator finishes, send whatever Hellions or Reapers they have. They're going to try to force a little bit of a fight. They're going to try to be somewhat annoying. And then the Liberator sieges up over your main base right as you're moving everything to deal with the Reapers and Hellions. Reapers and Hellions don't really need to do anything. If the Liberator sieges and you've distracted your Terran opponent for even a couple of seconds, you're going to have killed like 10 SCVs. So there's a lot that you can do here. And also the other awkward thing is Cyclones, yes, powerful, expensive, techie, armored, but actually not great at cleaning these guys up. So he's got to deal with this now. He's microing everything, and killing that Cyclone is huge because it's the only fly, and he gets it. So now you've got a Liberator sieged over a command center that is completely helpless. And the Reapers are still alive, which should just not be possible.
Oh, and this Cyclone actually locks onto one of the Reapers, and the Reapers are going to be used to zone out. Those SCVs need to go mine at the natural. Maybe
he's trying to poop it.
Stay with the Cyclone just to make sure that it's repaired, but definitely not all of them. I mean, TY is losing so very much time here, and he's going to actually just repopulate the main base after clearing this, but so much mining time lost, Nate.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I like what Clem was trying to do. He threw a couple of the Reaper grenades at awkward spots to try and boop SCVs, and he tried to boot the Cyclone into the Liberator circle, which I have lost a game because of that. It is the most painful feeling on Earth. It's like, my Cyclone could kill this Liberator, no problem. And then the Reaper just goes boop. And it's like,
that would be the next level play. I completely missed that intention, Nate. Thank you. But this Banshee, though, for TY, again, the great equalizer. There is a Cyclone on the side of Clem as well defensively. The Banshee will find 7 SCVs, it looks like, so not too bad for a cloakless Banshee, yeah?
Yeah, especially without having... If you don't pay for cloak and you get 7 workers with your Banshee, that is good. Now, see, this is, in my opinion, this is an extremely high risk.
Yeah.
And not that high reward play to make. The Raven costs an incredible amount of gas. Like, if you had skipped this Raven... you could have done a completely different build and still had all the early harass stuff that you did too. And he's, especially because he's proxying it, which is just, I'm scratching my head here because Ravens are units that, you know, assuming you don't let them sit at 200 energy, they can theoretically generate an infinite amount of value, right? Through auto turrets, interference matrix, Dorito cannon, all that jazz. You can use them forever. They're not really meant to expose themselves like that. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about when I bring up, like, in that last game. I actually learned it from that really legendary, famous Terran streamer, the Muslim. It's fantastic. About 5 years ago, I think, one time was like, if you see somebody just throwing their Ravens at you and they just throw their auto turret, just let them kill the SCVs because it means they don't have anything at home because Ravens are freaking expensive, mate. And I'm like, that's some good advice. That's some good advice. If someone's throwing Ravens at you and wasting energy on, like, any Terran player that has played, you know, more than 100 games, I'd say, in TVT, you've kind of figured out that you can lose a lot of SCVs in this matchup. Like, workers are probably least important in TVT versus any other matchup, in my opinion, in StarCraft. Obviously, you're free to hold your own on that. I just think that you can do the most when you lose, like, almost all of your workers in this matchup because it's so centered around the power units. It's so centered around those Ravens, the Cyclones, the tanks, and the Vikings that there is that flexibility to it. So I always get anxious when I see a Raven get killed early on because they have so much potential. It's a shame to squander it.
Indeed. I mean, we just saw a little bit of a glimpse of that, right? If you put it on paper, I mean, you look at the army outside of TY's base, and he should never move out with 2 medevacs, but knowing that he can rely on 3 tanks to hold the line, he moves out with 2 medevacs and makes the game happen for him. And it is those power units that you can really use for big shifts and power moves, and yeah, TVT can be pretty volatile in that sense. So this game, however, it's more or less stabilized, I would say. I'm surprised that TY never found the proxy. Clem anticipated that TY would find the proxy, so he kind of moved away and floated back to his base.
Yeah, and look at the spread, by the way, for both of the units, both of the players with their units as far as vision goes. You've got a lot of guys that are just kind of out there. They run into each other, and the highest HP Marine is the one that gets targeted first. Little guy, unfortunately, unable to make it out. But I also just love the way these Cyclones are hiding in the bush, right? Yeah. You're using your fastest units that also don't really matter anymore. Like in this phase of the game, the Cyclone is usually not your linchpin holding everything together. But at the same time, they can still give you a lot of vision, and killing a couple of Marines here and there before you get to the big fight is always nice to have.
Yes, indeed. Or even a potential Raven that's in front. That would be obviously the dream. But like you said, I mean, Cyclones are going to be kind of wasted potential at the fights because they're just going to latch onto the first Marine that they see. There's too many units to prioritize them going on anything else. And even if you did, they're gonna die so very fast to larger numbers of units. So they trade amazingly in the early game where there's very few numbers of units, but as army scale, not usually the best, especially not in this matchup.
So look at this spread. He's got the drop on the bottom side. He's trying to move the whole army towards that north section. This is where those sensor towers really pay for themselves. And now that Medevac's going to make its way in, just a single lone turret to try and defend will not be enough. However, there is a tank sieging up inside of the man as the rest of the Marines are going to be coming over here. So Clem drop shouldn't be able to get too much more, but a good point actually brings a lot of stim. Actually, even better point, because I don't think TY has even started his combat shields. So when you stand without combat shields, tanks one-shot your Marines. That's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal.
Yes, indeed. And TY actually had a tank at the main, but now, hey, here comes the big attack. One of the tanks is going to be disabled on the side of TY. One still firing, and the tank's too far away from Clem. Only in reach of one tank, not able to provide the support to his bio army. Now TY has brought back his own bio army and is ready for a comfortable hold, I think. Let's see, he knows whatever moves Clem is making, and he does have air control as well. We were mentioning how very important that is. 2 Liberators in production to take full advantage of it, and that should be plenty enough to dislodge this location.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about, right? It's all about these important key power units still having these Ravens alive. They can continue to build that energy up and then use it for the disables or the Dorito cannon for the next fight. Even without combat shield, being able to get that negative armor onto the opponent's Marines is huge.
Yes, indeed. Do you find that in this matchup the turrets are worse than in the other matchups as well? At least in fight?
I think in TVT, I feel like sensor towers are the real answer to most of those problems, more than turrets are, just because, like...
No, I meant the Raven auto turrets, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No. Oh, it's all good. I like the Raven auto turrets too, though. Like, the important thing to keep in mind is even if they don't deal, like, the most insane damage in the world like they used to, they still pack a nice punch, but more importantly, they're 150 hit points, and they have 1 armor. Like, they soak a lot. Like 150 hit points.
Cool.
That's 3 Marines, right? That you can save. And with the size of them as well, like if a tank shoots an auto turret, that's not really doing splash damage to anything around it because it's a big unit, you know? Like there's a couple of things with that. And so I think all of the Raven's abilities are always good. There's nothing, it's never bad to just have an extra 500 or 600 hit points in your army. Like even if you don't think it's the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah, because I love the auto turrets early in the game, but later in the game they just get taken down. But now that the way that you put it, I mean, it makes sense. Like later they kind of become a tank, whereas earlier they're kind of there to kill stuff, right?
Yeah, and I still think that you'll see a lot of players not really use Ravens that late game anyway, because you're trying to control your primary bio army and whatnot. And I think as the game. But like, imagine if you leave them where those drops come in and you just boom, interference matrix, the medevacs once like 2 or 3 Marines are out, and then what? Then you have plenty of time to get some reinforcements over there to help defend against the big drop.
Oh, I love this.
Speaking of, so he's making a push on the top side where he wants to grab that 4th base, but at the same time flying down south past where that missile turret is, that lone single turret. And we've got a lot of tanks and Marines here, and he has not only control of production, but a lot of the supply depots. These tanks a little bit too clumped up together as the Marines get an easy spread for Clem, and he is doing a whopping, devastating amount of damage so far. But he wants to clean it up. The Marines are going to come in and try and clean it up with that armor taken down by 3. Wow. It is enough for TY to defend.
Wow. A very cool attack and a very nice defense in the end there by TY. He did have 2 tanks anchoring most of his production, but like you were saying, a lot of the supply depots and some of the production still exposed. A very nice move from Clem, but ultimately TY kind of stabilizing. His big problem right now is just economy, right, Nate?
Yeah, this whole entire situation has just been crazy, but at the very least, Clem has had that extra base now for a little while, and he's even got the 5th command center up in the air, getting ready to reposition that for, I assume, will be that 5th base in the top center position. We do have a couple of medevacs flying over there, I think, though, possibly trying to squeeze into that main. There's 3 of them right as the sensor tower finishes, Cats.
Yeah, he's gonna be spotted, but still not much in position. 1 single tank unsieged will be enough to deter TY, and Clem actually will use the opportunity to move on to one of the very few mining bases of TY. TY is late to the party. There are no tanks left, and this army is gonna run into the siege fire of Clem. The base will be pushed back, killed actually, scrapped.
No repair.
And GG is called.
Clem ties the series up 1 apiece, and I cannot tell a lie. This has been a really close group so far, Cats. These matches all going to the wire, being so close, is just, it's got me on the edge of my seat. And if you're on the edge of yours, maybe stretch the old legs real quick. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll get into the deciding game for our 3rd best of 3 of the day. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching the DreamHack Masters StarCraft 2 Last Chance Tournament. That's right. I'm Nathanius, joined by Cats. But don't worry, it's not the last chance for you to watch some amazing StarCraft today. We've got game number 3 coming up between Clem and TY in the winners match. And I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, did Clem? That means, oh my goodness. Yes, it's true, guys. Terran is overpowered as we load into Oxide for what is sure to be a banger.
Hells yeah, and it's both of these players' last chance to try and advance in first from this tournament, so that from their group at least. So that would be a great accomplishment for either of them, but I think Clem really wants to win this one. I mean, as does TY, really. Both players are gonna have a tough match ahead of them regardless, right? I want to say Clem, if he faces Ragnarok, is the only prediction that I would just be confident on being like, okay, Clem's gonna take it, and not to this on Ragnarok. I just think Clem is so amazing TVC, and I almost want to see him lose and Ragnarok beat Cest just to watch that. But yeah, they gotta be sweaty. Nate.
Yeah, that's the only way to put it. As we are loaded in, and our first player in the top right, the blue Terran, he is TY.
Bottom left-hand side, he is playing for Team Liquid, Clem.
All right, and Oxide is one of those maps that has I like to call it the Valley of Death, which is just that little space between right outside your natural. You go down a ramp, but then there's immediately multiple other ramps. Now there's some rocks on one of them, but there's the other one that's a lot closer. And in TVT, on ladder, a lot of your games probably end with somebody getting into a good siege point, right? On the other side of that cliff by the natural. And I call it Valley of Death because you have to give up your high ground advantage to move out of your base, right? And that's why contain builds are just very strong on this map, because you're not really at a disadvantage to be outside their base if you are able to get long range units like tanks on top of either of those like third base type positions. So
it is, yeah. I think one of the most positionally intensive maps for the matchup, right? There's also the low ground position to siege your tanks at those minerals and gas that we barely see on camera here or near them to kind of siege the choke with the supply depots and the whatever production building is at the front, which could be an important one later on, as we see there's space for a potential tech lab or reactor there. It could be swapped onto something like a factory or a starport, and then if you siege that building, it can get pretty nasty. And also going down that ramp that you were talking into the Valley of Death, to the left of it, right there's a good tank sieging spot where it will cover most of the ramp as well from an aggressive position, right? So there's a lot of really interesting places for tanks in particular on this map. So I hope we see some of those.
Yeah, kind of hearkening, I'll call it back to the game that we played or that we had on Submarine earlier, where that was that really quick siege tank. Something like that on a map like this can be really devastating. But I also think back to, I think it was, a TVP, was it Euthermal Showtime, where it's like, it comes down, whole matches will just come down to big contains, where Terrans will just try to lock their opponents in, or vice versa, right, with force field. So this map is pretty interesting for that reason alone. You don't have a standard kind of area to just explore. There's not a obvious direct pathway that is ideal, because you have to give something up no matter which way you go. But I think that gives us a pretty fun venue for the decider of this series. We've got two guys that busted their asses and made their way to this winner's match, want to get out of this group in first place, and it's going to all be on the line here, Cats.
Yes, indeed. And whoever wins will boost their rating, and perhaps it's the last chance that they will have to do that today, at least in TVT, and potentially overtake Innovation, who is, I think, the only player ahead of both of these in the TVT matchup rating-wise. So let's see what ends up happening here. It's going to be a Raven to open up things for Clem, and a medevac drop with a mine, classic from TY.
Oh, yeah. And this is one of those things where a lot of people like to point out and be like, well, you know, Widow Mines don't actually one-shot SCVs, so you do have to bring at least a couple of Marines with them. Now, 6 Marines, or excuse me, 5 is going to be plenty with this single mine. Of course, assuming you can land those hits on the SCVs. But we do have a tank here and a bunch of other Marines available for Clem. Mine does not even get to detonate, so just really good control there with the Raven and the rest of the forces, making sure that TY is not able to land a blow at the beginning of this game.
Yeah, and a very interesting exchange as well, because all of the units of Clem were concentrated at the natural base, which might seem like the obvious thing, but if Clem knew that there was a medevac out or intention of a medevac out, Clem was playing without information, I think he would have some of those units at his main. And I think TY gives him enough credit to have some units at his main that he chooses to go over to the natural, even though the natural for the mine and the Marines is the worst location, because there should be less SCVs at the natural than at the main, right? So there's less of a threat post, and TY thinks that it's worth to go there to not find the units. But unluckily for him, that's exactly where Clem was.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up. I like that a lot. He hasn't shied away from going for the lower risk, lower reward plays.
Yeah.
But even then, I think Clem really just kind of showing the form he's in today, because he has played some fantastic StarCraft today. And Clem is just kicking off this game with a defense that says, hey, I'm still here, buddy. And this is not going to be, you're not going to be able to pull a fast one on me in any sort of way, as he's going to have a Liberator go for a bit of a backstab. The whole army's out in the center of the map, so he should be able to get at least a few here. Really good reaction time from TY, though.
Yeah, 2 go down, technically a few. Will more go down? I mean, this is already great, I think, from Clem, though. Stalling the mining at the natural base of TY. He also has a bigger army out on the map, but it's TY this time going for the Doom Drop. I love this, Nate. Doom Drops are so crazy difficult to dislodge. Now Clem has a very difficult decision to make. Will he go counterattack or will he pull back? He is choosing to go for the counter offense, but this is the worst possible location on the map that he could be on. He's right in the middle of it, Nate.
Yeah, this is just terrifying. Now the Raven, it needs to use its energy. It could tank. Instead, it does nothing. That's absolutely catastrophic for Clem as TY rips and tears inside that main base. Now he's going to land the Vikings. He's going to bring everything, including the kitchen sink, as TY is going to evacuate the natural expansion. That Liberator is still poised over the mineral line. TY's not at money. TY can't build anything.
Oh my God, this game is still potentially going in Clem's favor in spite of the supply being what it is. If that tank had been sieged on the high ground, I think TY would have had an easy defense, but instead it was caught unsieged on the low ground. Not a mistake that he could afford to make. Clem must have done something to distract them on his side of the map, and now we have a crazy hectic game. I think I actually won't even. I mean,
well, I'm going to tell you the first thing that came into my mind was Vikings, and there are 2 for Clem.
Yeah.
None. There is no air to air at all on the map for TY. He doesn't have Vikings. He doesn't have a Liberator or anything that he could use to kill buildings in a stalemate situation. So I think something very important to keep in mind, assuming that this turns into a stalemate type situation, which is where I think we're headed. Clem, you definitely want to keep your Vikings alive. The Marines, you have to kill the Vikings if you get a chance. He gets that one, but there's still a few more alive. I would pocket these in the corner or send them to some dead airspace, because the only way that you don't win this game now, if it, when it reaches that type of situation, is if you don't have a way to kill your opponent's buildings, and then it turns into a draw.
Yeah, and also, I mean, even without that, right? Even trying to breach into each other's army, air superiority is going to be particularly effective when there isn't energy to scan available, right? Where you want to be muling with your 1 CC or 2 CCs that you have. So yeah, Vikings are kind of the key here. And I'm sure.
What is this?
I don't think I've ever seen this. Not like this. And the worst thing is, TY's command center is misplaced, so he might have to lift back up. That would have been hilarious if he lifted back up to
seats taken.
Oh man, TY trying to situate production somewhere. He's got to be able to land his barracks. But Nate, what's going on, man?
If he just needs a couple dollar bill, I guess, land in your opponent's main and drop a few mules. I don't know. Well, then the Marines will have something to say about that. Now, I've still got my eyes on the Vikings. We still have the 2 Vikings alive for
Big red force here. Big red force is actually gonna take care of the one siege tank that TY had available. This Raven is paramount to his defense, but he's spent all of his energy now. The tank's chasing away the SCVs, and TY, he's kind of falling apart here. This is his second to last season. This is his back to reclaim his rightful seat. He really wanted that expansion. It was gonna take no other, Nate.
Yeah. I like that he tried to land there again. That was cute. That was cute. I appreciate that. We all like that. Clem still has that left side base too.
Oh,
Liberator. Don't want to lose that either. That is still an air-to-air unit. That is a potential anti-stalemate unit.
Yes, indeed. I mean, TY has the economic lead as well. So I don't know. This game could stabilize. Can we look at what production the both of the players have? Because I feel like that's gonna be important as well. I think that TY has a lot of landed, scattered buildings all over the place, and in so long as he retains the army lead, and they're not pushing into each other's like we thought what might have been a stalemate, right? Where both players just have their armies to work with. TY can actually make this happen, right? Because the Vikings are not gonna be so important if in a non-stalemate situation, in a situation where this game somehow is beginning to stabilize, things are looking up for TY.
Yeah, especially because he has 3 barracks, right? He has the tank. So just being able to make a couple of Marines is huge. All there is for Clem is just 1 barracks that's back at his old main base, which means he doesn't really have a direct way to reinforce at the base on the right side. He did just finish a new barracks there. So he's doubled his production capacity in a heartbeat, which is just astounding, but still not quite enough. And he's going to try and get a siege up on this. I don't know if he gets caught. If he gets caught like this,
he has to do something. No, I like it. I honestly like it. It may not work. He is working at a deficit, but he has to make those power units make some work because he's otherwise a little bit behind in economy. He has almost lost that CC, though recognizing that the army had to have been going somewhere. This is just brilliant moves from both players, right? The CC that was getting attacked actually gives the information for Clem to pull his army back because he knew that the army of TY was going to collapse onto it. And at the same time, I mean, he still hasn't made anything happen yet, so he has to find something.
Worth pointing out here is that Clem does not have any upgrades for the Marines, not just Stim. There's actually 1-1 for TY. So his Marines are going to absolutely slaughter Clem if he gets into a fight where the tanks aren't pre-sieged. Now, I don't mean sieging during the fight. They have to be sieged before, zone them away. Because now he's getting combat shields, so he can actually stim into the tanks without that one-shot potential. And that's going to open some opportunities and open some doors.
Oh, here it comes. This is it. Oh, the Marines choosing to do a big stim, but actually retreating. But the Raven has found the flank. Only 1 tank remaining, and it actually shoots at the auto turret or something in the back first. So now TY is going to get the cleanup, and I think we are seeing the victor of this game. And by consequence, the serious Nate, TY has done it. Well played, and wow, what a game to close things off.
What a game indeed, cats.